Hey all, this is Dave, and today's big hairy idea is the accredited investor loopholes. As you can see, my background here is different. I'm visiting family in Connecticut, be here for the next month. It's such a blessing to be able to come in this beautiful place and spend some time here. But I want to continue what we've been talking about. So we've been talking about financial independence being when your passive income exceeds your cost of living. When money you don't have to work for is coming in, and that covers all your costs, and you can work if you choose to, but you don't have to work any longer. Therefore, you're completely independent. You can do what you want with your life. And we talked about ways of getting passive income earlier this week. We talked about certain ways that are really available pretty much for the wealthy only. And they're not available for everyday people who don't have a certain amount of money that allows you to be accredited. Remember, accredited investment is something that the government did. We talked about this yesterday. The standards that say that if you have less than a certain amount of wealth or income, they're afraid of people taking advantage of you. And funds that are set up for the wealthy to give them returns on their money, to give them passive income, just are not going to be available to poorer people at all. Or so I thought. Because when I first started looking into this, as I was researching the cash machine a little over a year ago, I started speaking to people in different accredited investment vehicles. And I suddenly found out that there were some available to me that I hadn't realized would be. So two big loopholes that I want to be covering here. And one of them, first one I learned about was I called these guys up with this accredited investment company, and they were investing in this whole real estate project. And I talked to them about it. And this new project they had coming up, it wasn't yet available for investment. And I told them, I'm not accredited. Can I get into that? And they said, well, look, the government allows us to have 35 slots for non-accredited investors. So as soon as we launch this project, get in fast, because it'll take us a while to fund the entire thing, but those first 35 slots, those are the first to go, because non-accredited investors are always looking for ways to get into these accredited investments, and those go fast. But there are 35 slots in every accredited investment for non-accredited investors. Now, that doesn't mean that they have to use them all. Once you let even one non-accredited investor into an investment, suddenly the standards you have to hit for disclosure and reporting go way up. So some investment funds don't want to allow any non-accredited investors in because they don't want the burden on themselves. Not they don't want your money, they don't want the requirements the government is going to put on them in order to take that money. But as long as they're okay taking that money, there will be 35 slots. Now sometimes they're just absolutely impossible to get. Say you've got a giant fund with hundreds of millions of dollars. Those 35 slots were gone years ago. But like the people I spoke to in this particular deal, what they were saying was that even though they run they have a ton of real estate and they have a ton of money under management, each investment for them was its own small package. So it's not that they had 35 slots to give to non-accredited investors under their entire umbrella of investments. Each time they bought a property, since they made each one its own separate company, its own separate entity, each one had 35 slots. So as long as you are fast, you could get one of those 35 slots in a project. So that's one exception, one loophole to the accredited investment whole type of investments. You can be non-accredited and still get in there. Now, I didn't wind up investing in that particular investment. I wound up investing in a different one. And that one also, by the way, had its 35 slots available. I could have gone into them if I wanted to. That was, again, because they made each investment its own small thing, these guys told me, you know what, we're not going to get 35 investors total. So coming in not accredited, even though we should be only for accredited investors, coming in not accredited is never a problem with us, because each one is such a small collection of investors that we always have room available. But they said it's better for us if you come in as an accredited investor, because that lessens the legal burden on their shoulders. And in this case, what I learned was that I could self-certify as accredited. So what does that mean? So let's say, again, I wanted to invest in a giant hedge fund with several $1 billion worth of money under management. Now, these guys want to be really particular to not let any non-accredited investors in. Their 35 slots are gone long ago, and if they're taking money in now, it's got to be from accredited investors. But they want to make sure that you're 100% legitimately accredited. What does that mean? They're going to use the highest level of standards to figure out if you're accredited or not. So if you're saying that you have the wealth to be accredited, well, they're going to send you to a third-party firm to verify that you really are accredited. And sometimes your wealth is really going to be in very easy to quantify vehicles. Like if you have the money just sitting in a bank, you see, okay, what's the bottom line? How much money you have? Does that equal the amount you need to be accredited, the $1 million threshold, or does it not? If it doesn't meet it, you're out. If it meets it, you're in. But sometimes you've got someone like me who's got their wealth in a place that is not easy to evaluate. Almost all of my money is in my business. Almost all of my net worth is in the business that I own. But how do you evaluate what a business is worth? If I was to sell my business tomorrow, well, the amount of money I get for it, that's what my business is worth. The market has decided. But if I don't sell my business, how do you decide its valuation? If I was to sell it, I might get offers here, I might get offers here, I might get offers all over the place. So how do I decide how much a non-sold business, a business I'm just holding, is actually worth for determining if I'm an accredited investor or not? And what I found out is that there are different tests. Some tests look on the overall revenue of the business, and by that criteria, my business would probably be worth enough for me to be an accredited investor. But the more common test is based upon a multiple of the amount of profits a business is making. And by that test, I'm nowhere near wealthy enough to be an accredited investor. So if I was to invest in that $10 billion hedge fund, they'd send me off to a third-party certification organization that would look at my business and would give me the most conservative valuation for my business possible. And according to that, no way they'd take my money. They'd say, sorry, but we're getting this valuation for your business that is teeny tiny. We can't take your money. We want to be really cautious about it. But in the investment that I wound up going in last year, they said, look, it's better for us if you say you're accredited than non-accredited. If you feel comfortable plausibly saying that your business is worth enough for you to be accredited, we'd rather you self-certify. And self-certify meant just literally checking a box that said, yes, I'm an accredited investor. And so I looked at all the different tests for evaluating a business, and I saw that according to the revenue model, which is an uncommon model and people don't typically use, but it is a legitimate model. And some business buyers would look at that model in order to decide whether to buy a business or not. I mean, think about it for a moment. A lot of businesses are purchased that have zero profits whatsoever. And a lot of them, look at Amazon. It had billions of dollar valuations and no profits for over a decade. So a lot of times people will look at the revenue model for evaluating a business. And certainly in certain tech sectors and high-tech areas where businesses aren't even expected to be profitable for a very long time, they'll look at revenue and they'll look at other factors along those lines. So because I was able to find a test that said that I was accredited, even though the more common test said I was not, because of that, I was already able to go and self-certify that I was accredited. So those are really the two loopholes. One, if you can get fast enough into an investment, and usually that'll only happen in a small investment, you can get one of 35 places that are set aside for non-accredited investors, so that they can take up to 35 non-accredited investors into a fund, into a deal. Two, if you're arguably accredited, but unarguably not, you can, in a small deal, they'll often allow you to self-certify. And all you need to do is be able to make an argument that you're accredited. You don't need to prove it. There's no government body that certifies it. There's no criteria that you have to hit. You just need to have a good argument, and that already protects the people you're investing with legally. If you have a good argument and say that it would stand up in court, you can say it doesn't have to be the best argument. It just has to be plausible. If you can plausibly say your business is worth X, your net value worth is X, then you can go in as an accredited investor in any organization that will allow you to self-certify. So under those two loopholes, you can often get access to investments that would otherwise be off limits to you and be able to get additional sources of passive income.